Well, people can wonder why. Ouch, sorry. People can wonder why I don't do install videos. That is usually because stuff does not go according to plan, and then it's just totally fucked from the time I start, pretty much. And, I don't know why I kept going. Call me stupid, something. I don't know. So, doing the ported fuel fitting. Obviously, I have not gotten it in yet. I haven't even gotten the stupid fuel line out. Went to bust the fuel nut loose. Well, that didn't bust loose. That down there on the CP3 fitting busted loose. You gotta be kidding. So I'm like, well, fuck it. We'll take that out. Hopefully we can get it all out via this tight-ass gap right here. And, so, yeah, that's where we're at. I got the fuel rail plug-in. Don't ask me how I torqued it. I think I heard a click, that mental click when you're tightening stuff, So, yeah, nice thing is the wrench is wearing a groove in the line, because I really like when there's a nice groove and a wearing away of material on something that handles 26,000 psi. That's just something you really, really want to have a weak spot. Now, I understand it's on the outside, not on the inside, but it's still not great. Now, the stupid fucking thing is this fitting is like ultra long, and I'm hitting against this metal line right here. So for some reason they had to make that uber long down there so that it would come up and meet that. Not that that's how you do it, but so what this is looking like I'm gonna have to do, not thrilled whatsoever, is pull the thermostat housing off with the coolant tube to get a crow's foot down there. I've got a nice crow's foot kit. And so I can hold that fitting and put a wrench on here and try and bust that loose. Now I'm hoping I'm not wearing something into this rubber hose, because that's a nice tight fit as well. Why they have to do spider web, let's weave and run all this shit as tight and freaking spot as we possibly can. I don't know why there's a nut down there. How is that supposed to be there? It just looks like it's been dropped in there. Oh, okay. Never mind. Anyway, so, yeah. And I really, if I was going to go into it this far, and I probably should have done this had I thought I had a whole lot farther. The truck, every once in a great while, especially when I cold start it, and it's never really when it's warm, but it's when I cold start it, it kind of has a jump in the idle speed just ever so slightly, like the fuel pressure regulator's going bad. So had I just ordered a new fuel pressure regulator, I would have been able to have this off and make that job a whole lot easier. I would have busted the stupid fitting loose still, but I would have been able to get down in there with a crow's foot and just busted the line loose and not had a major freaking problem. And I was, I've got a trick to busting stuff loose, especially aluminum. I think that's an aluminum nut, which is just fantastic. That's just perfect. So, you hold the wrench in your hand as flat, as tight as possible on there, and you just kind of try and bust it loose. Sometimes it do that while using a hammer as well, and usually get stuff to break loose pretty okay. Now, I was watching a video on YouTube. Some guy was just being absolutely freaking retarded with it. Like, he's got the wrench on here. I mean, I've kind of been doing it, but I've been pushing. That's where it's been cutting a groove, because it's been pushing up against the line. But he had it like off here, and he's pushing, and it slips off. I'm like, you idiot. You strip that fucker, you're done, dude. Just done. So, oh, mother lord. Why do we have to do things the hard way? Why can't you just cooperate and just come off like every other video on YouTube where the guy just goes in here, and of course they don't show that except for that one video pretty much. Just go in here and bust that loose and done. Why? Why did it have to be stuck on there like that? Because the thought that's going through my head is, because this is like a compression fitting that holds that on there with a lot of compression. So I'm thinking, because that nut didn't bust loose, it's that the nipply end, however you want to call it, the little rounded head, is rubbing and grooving on that fitting for the CP3 and possibly creating metal shavings and or busted the fuel line off inside underneath the nut, possibly because it spins and it spins very tight, so it's a lot of friction. So I just don't know what to think. It's not like I'm out without if there is a problem, because we have spare parts. Oh, shit. Oh, kneeling like that for too long. Oh, does that hurt? This thing's tripping me. Too much shit in here. Golly. We got spare parts, so it's not the end of the world. They're a little bit rustier, but they're there. And so that's what we're really hoping to not have to do. But, we get that fuel line out, and we put it in the bench vise, and we see, we bust it loose, and we see how damaged things may or may not be. And then with that out, we bust that, or we put the SCP-3 fitting in nice and tight and snug, and we put the fuel line in, get that all tightened up after everything's said and done. But I have to remove the freaking thermostat housing. It's just one of those things I didn't want to have to do today at all. What a mess. 100%. You know, and it doesn't really ever matter how far you drain the radiator when you disconnect this hose. There's just gobs and gobs and gobs of coolant in here, and it just pukes all over relentless. I hate messing with it. Now, the sucky thing is this fitting right here, the big nut looking thing, that's leaking. I don't know if you can tell, you know, it's kind of wet around it, and you see that the orangish coolant pool there. It's been leaking for a while. I don't know. It's more like weeping, not leaking. I really hate messing with that. I hate messing with it because most of the time that rubber line that connects to that frickin' thing is just ever so dry rotted, or not dry rotted, but just stiff. I know you should replace the hose. Well, you know, in reality, all these hoses should be replaced. It's just, how long can I get away before I have to rip absolutely everything off the top of this engine and replace every single little rubber line? Especially the one that runs underneath the fan pulley, or right above the fan pulley there. That's just ass, man. Who designed that? Who designed a spider web of fuel lines? Why? I don't get it. You know, be a minimalist, you know, use as little stuff as possible when designing stuff. Oh no, that's been 15,000 fuel lines all over and stake them here, there, and everywhere and tie the tightest spots you could possibly think of. So that way when you got to work on it, you got to pull the whole top end of the motor apart, you know, heads and everything to do fuel line. Over exaggeration, but you know, it's getting just to be as bad as a Ford at that rate, you know. So frickin' A. Oh yeah, so that's what we're up against. The sucky thing is when that busted loose, the fitting, I was like, crap. So, do I just try and tighten it back up and say, oh, well, screw it, or do I actually continue on? I was like, well, we'll continue on and see what happens. Well, I really don't want to put it back on. I don't know. I want to know if I've worn a nasty groove in the fuel head, the little nipply head there, because that's probably aluminum. And that's a steel fitting, so that's, you know, that's another problem. Why did they do aluminum and steel together? So yeah, my goodness, what a freaking clusterfuck. Oh my gosh. So my worst of the worst has come of just pulling the fender, pulling the lower radiator hose, draining as much frickin' 0-degree coolant as possible, and seeing where that gets me. But I think with that out of the way, it'll be a whole lot better, obviously. So, frickin' A. I'm laughing sometimes when I'm talking here, because doing that plug up there, easiest freaking thing possible. I literally took my nice SK 6-point wrenches and tapped on it with a hammer. Bing bong boom, she came loose. Perfect. Got it out, put it in, nice and snug, and click, done, tight, and yeah, that was done. We go to do this one. Oh, it makes up for the other thing being so incredibly easy. 100% makes up for it. Oh, Lord. So that was literally about maybe 6-7 minutes. Easy peasy. This is going to make up for it. Probably 3 hours, I'd say. Total. Wrap up time, button back together, coolant filled back up. I mean, you name it. We're probably talking 3 hours. So, including this 11-minute video now. So, let me know what you guys frickin' think in the comments, whatever. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, you name it, leave it. And I hope you all enjoy my agonizing frustration. But yet again, this is why I don't do install videos, because, well, what would be supposed to be like a 10-minute job, you know, this just is fitting, a 10-minute job, or 20, whatever, going into like 3 hours. That's, you know, and that's the name of working on vehicles. But I just fucking hate it when that happens. It's like, why? Why do I have to have the one-off vehicle where, you know, like there's 2 different versions, but one version is so rare, something or other, this, that, where you take it apart and the shit breaks. And it's like, oh yeah, you've got that super ultra mega rare version that's like 6 times the cost, you know? So it's like, what the fuck? Seriously? And this is that kind of situation where, seriously? And it's like, if I could move this hard line over to where it's like a low point in this snaked underline, I might be able to get that fitting out of there, because I don't even know if the fitting's all the way out or not. If it's not, then we're royally screwed, but if it is, then yeah, if we could get that, you know, just to pop up, then, my gosh, you get this line to pop up, it wouldn't be such a big deal, but my gosh, unreal. Anyway, alrighty, thanks for watching, God bless. Quick update, because my phone battery's not very, strong. It's at 9%. And anyway, fuel rail fitting is in. As you can see, had to pull the thermostat housing, all the 9 yards. Sorry for the shaky camera. I ended up tightening, screwing that back down in there for the CP3. You can see the fitting there. Out of the way. Right there. And tightened it down with a crow's foot. And then I was like, for giggles now, we're going to frickin' put the crow's foot on reverse, give it a quick jab and see what happens. And it went tink, and the nut came loose. So line off. Literally, I had my dad getting ready to come down and help me out, because I was needing a crow's foot that was like an open end wrench, not like a line wrench. For you that don't know what that is, this is like a line wrench. So it goes around the nut, and it does not have a problem. Basically, you can stick an open-end wrench right over a nut and not have a problem like that nut. And just boop, right over it. But this, you have to go over the shaft and onto the nut. Not down, but just over the shaft and onto the nut. So I needed something like this, but an open-end wrench, because I was planning on sticking something like this down there and over the fitting down there to hold it in place while I broke the nut loose. But I do not have anything like that. Dad does not have anything like that. We're probably going to buy something like that. Or, like we were planning here, is like, this is my sacrificial, it was going to be my sacrificial one. Take this head, take the handle, weld it or bend it 90 degrees from the head, and then bend this 90 degrees, weld a socket on there with the 3/8 box end sticking up, so I can just stick a ratchet right on top of it to hold that fitting in place while I broke the nut loose. But I used the crow's foot on the nut, on the line nut, tightened it, gave it a quick jab in reverse, bam, broke loose. So hallelujah, we're on the right track. It's already torqued, 52 foot-pounds. My big behemoth freaking torque wrench of 52 foot-pounds fit in there. It's snug as a bug in a rug. We're going to get the fuel line in there. What was really frustrating is once that line broke loose, it was loose. It was just like, boop, yep, do it with your fingers now. And it's like, frick, you know how long it took me to do what I just did? And it just popped off and the line was out. I'm about to pop the line right back in, be done. And put the cooling back on, and oh Lord, what a process. But to have all this done, to know that we're going to be safe and sound, and have that leak fixed for that coolant line here behind the wiring, that little tube, to have that fitting on the coolant thingy over here fixed, that'll be a peace of mind, because I totally forgot about that sucker leaking. So I'm going to plug my phone back in before it dies. Thanks for watching. God bless. Oh, the studio's kind of like after doing head gaskets. First fire up since doing the stuff. We aren't opening that window. That window's a pile of shit. Okay. Since doing the fuel fittings. It's like that. No mirror. I gotta open the door. Fire it up. Thanks for watching. God bless.